Thank you again, Teresa, for introducing me. As mentioned, my name is Lisa Alexandra. My pronouns are she, her, and I have worn a lot of hats on this ever-winding journey that has been my career as an early childhood professional. As mentioned, my mom is an RECE, and she has owned and operated her childcare center for over 30 years now. So my entire life has been entwined in this sector in one way or another. Obviously, starting as a kid, growing up in her center in the care of really quality early childhood professionals. And as I got a little bit older and could help in classrooms, I was a teacher's assistant. I ran summer camps. After university, I was working alongside my mom as an administrator in the office. And then once again, as mentioned, in 2015, a lot of my worlds ended up colliding, and I developed Lala Wellness, yoga, and mindfulness-based programs for children in their early years. So that's my own personal contribution to this profession. I have a passion for leadership and advocacy within this sector, and that's where this session really comes from, the advocacy side of things. I had the great opportunity to participate in the Harvard Graduate School of Education's Early Childhood Leadership Program back in 2019. That was like, do you know the movie Legally Blonde with Elle Woods? That was a popular movie when I was growing up, and I wanted my Elle Woods moment, and this was it, except it was online. So maybe one day I'll get there, and it'll be super fun. But anyways, that was a very important piece of my story, and I most recently added the title of mom to my list of hats. Yeah, thank you. I had my baby girl Scarlett back in April, and she is adding an entire other dimension to my understanding of early childhood and what it means to play a role in it from that capacity. All of this work really lights me up, and it is work that I hope to do for as long as I am able and willing. And that particular phrase is important to remember for later, because just because you're able to do something does not always mean that you're willing to do it, right? You are willing professionals. You showed up for a professional development conference, so I have to reasonably assume that you want to get better at what you do. Is this true? Yes. All right. Yeah, claps to that. Absolutely. And so my message that I really hope to share with you today, the children that I teach in my classes and the people in my life in general, is one of empowerment. I really hope that you're going to leave this session today really owning your power, getting very connected to your truth, being confident enough to speak that truth, and tell your stories with intention, integrity, and incredible levels of impact. The impact that you make is already profound. Like, I could talk this entire hour about how important you are, but I need you to talk about how important you are. Does that make sense? Yes. It's always nice to hear it, but it's harder to say it for yourself. So this session is all about mapping out what your professional story is and how your personal narratives contribute to that professional story. So you are going to need your journal and your pen or just something that you can document. And I will say this, I know inevitably there's going to be somebody in the room who doesn't want to write anything down. I highly encourage you to write the things down. There is something important about writing things down. This is how stories can actually unfold. So pretty please get that pen to paper when we are doing our reflective journaling work. All right? Now, every story acknowledges history in some shape or form. And I know you would have done this earlier today, but I'd like to just take a moment once my computer decides to cooperate to reconnect to the land that connects us. And so if you are able and willing, I'll encourage you to put both of your feet on the ground. And if you're short like me and you need to scoot your bum to the front of your seat, that's okay. Just get all four corners of the ground of your feet onto the ground. Place one hand on your heart or over your heart and one hand on your abdomen or wherever is most comfortable. So let go of everything else. What matters most in this moment is you, your body, and your presence. And if you feel okay to do so, I'll encourage you to close your eyes. But if closing your eyes takes you out of the present moment, then keep them open, but soften your gaze somewhere down in front of you. All right? Let's just take a deep breath together in through the nose, and then let it go. And with both of your feet on the ground, I'll encourage you to really notice the weight of both of your feet, their connection to your shoes connection to the floor. Then take that awareness just a little bit deeper, recognizing that this floor was built upon a foundation, and that foundation is being held by Mother Earth. And with all of us connecting to that truth, we can acknowledge the history of the land that we have the privilege of being on. And we can express our gratitude towards the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years, with the well-being of future generations at the forefront of their intentions. In this breath of gratitude and acknowledgement, we recognize the truth of our history, and we can work towards a more reconciled and repaired future for the generations of little beings that we dedicate our life's work to. So once again, just feel your feet on the ground. Take a big breath in as though you're breathing in through the soles of your feet. And then let it go through the nose or mouth, whichever feels better. If your eyes have been closed, you can gently flutter them open and reacquaint yourself with the space. But let's stay connected to the ground beneath us. Let's use that groundedness, that history too, that intention behind creating a world that is going to be sustainable and beautiful for the next 7 generations. Let's bring that to this session and build upon it. Now, because the session is called What's Your Story, I'm going to use a lot of different story references here. And how I imagine our time together is like allowing the plot of your story to unfold. So we will start with intention. When you are aware of your intention, you start to uncover themes of your personal story. And with intention, you can find out how your character within your story best likes to express themselves. You can honor where your curiosity and that character within you has brought you to where you are today. And then we will establish some plot points of credibility, rather. We're going to uncover some of the stories that you have around your morals and your messages, and this is all going to contribute to the integrity of the narrative that you're going to share. And then finally, my hope is that we will finish this session by writing an impact statement so that you can really confidently express your why, right? We're all familiar with the continuous professional learning portfolio that is required from the College of BC East? Yes. How many of you would like that you have to do that? I see no hands. I'm not surprised. Why? Because it's more work? Because you already have so many other things on your plate? Why do you not have to prove what you've done? Does this resonate? I get it. So we have to make that process fun. We have to make that process worthwhile. And this session is where we can start that. That's my hope. All right? You're going to have the beginning of your portfolio if you have not already started it, just by being here. Now, where am I? Sometimes I get lost and sometimes I go on tangents, and there's a game that I play that I will play all day long, and I need your help. So when I know I'm getting off track, I do this. And when I do this, you need to do this. And it just helps me. Okay, so please be my helper. If I do this, you do what? Thank you kindly. All right, I know it's ridiculous, but then we get to move on. The ridiculousness ends, and we're good to go. Starting now. So the very first thing, I need to know what the story being told here is. At a very high level, who is in this picture? And just call it out. Who's in it? It's a made-up thing. And it's not a trick question. Who's there? A child! Yes! Fantastic. There's our character. We've got a kid. Okay? Where are they? Sensory table, is that what I heard? There are no wrong answers here. This is your story. Okay? They are at a sensory table. What are they doing? Exploring bubbles. Yeah, not trick questions. I really mean it. What do you see happening here? There are buttons in a bag with bubbles. They are playing with buttons in a bag with bubbles. Okay, now, if we can just extend our imagination for a moment, they're likely at this sensory table with other children. Is that a reasonable assumption? So, what could be happening at that table between those children? Chatter, I think I heard that. Talking, there's social things happening in this picture as well. Learning, yes, okay. We're going to dive deeper because someone just said learning. So we know the who, what. It's probably morning. They're playing with bubbles. One layer deeper, there's lots of things happening developmentally, right? So what is happening developmentally in this photo? And just call it out. You might have to be a little bit louder because my ears, they don't. There we go! Fine motor. Fine motor skills are being developed. What else? Counting, sorting. Yes, so there's like a math patterning element here. What else is happening developmentally in this photo? That was a lot at once, which I love, but I did not hear any of it. Exploring texture. Yes, exploring textures. So that sensory piece. What else? Regulation. Why do you say that? Amazing. So self-regulation may be happening in this photo with the sensory piece and the child focusing on just one, sensory stimulation. You know what I'm trying to say? Point. Stimulus. Thank you. Point. Is there anything else developmentally happening in this photo or that you imagine as happening? Spatial awareness, vocabulary. What else? We could go on, right? If you sat long enough, you would come up with at least 15 things happening in this photo developmentally for the child that is in this story. Colors and shapes, absolutely. So let's go one layer deeper now. This activity was placed on this sensory table by an early childhood professional. Why did they do it? For fun. First and foremost, always. Why else? To keep the children occupied, aka engaged. What else? Why would an educator want to share an activity like this? Someone screamed out bubbles earlier. Interest. How many of you have children in your classrooms who play when they're washing their hands because they love the bubbles so much? And that's not the most appropriate place to play with bubbles, right? Not in your classroom anyways. So this educator has put the bubbles in a bag where they can't get all over the place. So it serves that purpose too. Perhaps there were children in this class who are really interested and curious about colors. And the educator noticed that the children have been sorting Legos into colors and they want to provide a more sensory experience that is, at this table. And so they put colored buttons in a bag with bubbles to incorporate all of those interests while also helping them self-regulate, while also providing them with a social experience, while also. Do you see where I'm getting with this? The choices that you make may seem simple on the surface, but there are so many profound layers to every single choice. And those are the layers that I would love for us to be able to communicate. Because do you think a parent would look at this picture the same way that you just did? What would a parent see? Bubbles and buttons. My kid's playing with bubbles and buttons, right? What would a government official see who doesn't have any experience with early childhood? Say that again. The worst. But that is what they would see. Play. It's child's play. It's bubbles and buttons in a bag. But you know, because you have a very specific skill set. You have a vocabulary. You have a passion. And you have the knowledge that this is more than just buttons in a bag, right? Please say yes. Yes, you do. This is important. I don't know how much more I have to do. This is so important. All right? But how are the parents and the government officials and the people who don't have the language that you do going to know that this is important if you don't tell them? Does that make sense? People don't know what they don't know. And the more passionately we can share what we know with those people, the more they can get on board with what they do. How many of you would love for the parents of your children and government officials and people outside of this profession to get on board with this profession? Raise your hand if that's something that you would enjoy happening. The better valuation of the work that you do, getting things like raises and funding and all of those things, they happen when you stand in a room and you're passionate about what you do and you can communicate that in a way that makes people say, I get it. That's what we need to get better at. Personal opinion. So thank you very much for being here today because I hope we're going to get there. This is more than bubbles in a bag. You are more than just that awful B word. What is it? What is it? Oh, babysitters. That is not what you are whatsoever. So we're going to erase that word from vocabulary, and your story is going to be so much more robust than that. Okay, I did this. I went on a tangent. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry because what was said needed to be said. Here we go. This is hopefully an easy question for you to answer, and this is your first opportunity to write some of your story, okay? And I don't need you to go on a tangent, but I do want you to write down what are 3 reasons, try to get to 3, that you became an early childhood professional. And you know what? I know you're all ferociously writing. I want you to press pause for a moment. How many of you love children? If you don't, you might be in the wrong place, right? You love children, and we get it. Do not let that be one of the reasons that you write down. What makes your story unique? What are 3 unique reasons why you became an early childhood professional? All right? And they don't have to be profound. It could just be that, it was the career choice that was available to you, that it felt natural, that it made sense. If we had more time and space, I would have loved to hear from lots of you about what some of your reasons are. I'm going to hope to be a mirror for the room with my reasons. Maybe you'll see some of your story in my own. I haven't shared this piece yet, but a big part of why I do this is because I struggle with mental health challenges. I've had anxiety and depression for as long as I can remember, but I didn't have the language to communicate that was what I was experiencing. And so by the time I made it to my early 20s, I had a lot going on in here that I had not processed and dealt with, and it manifested as a nervous breakdown and a psychotic break. Those mental health challenges are what led me to the language of mindfulness and yoga. And so I became an early childhood professional because I wanted to be the adult that I needed when I was younger. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now, this is not to say I had a beautiful support network, but I did not have the language to process what I was experiencing because my mom didn't have the language to process what she was experiencing, and so on and so forth. So that's reason number 1 for me. Reason number 2 is it allowed me to really express my creative side. I was that kid who was very nervous in social settings and didn't really feel confident interacting with other children, so you would see me at the adult table. Like, if there was a spot for me at the kids' table, I did not want it. I do not want to sit there. I want to be with the adults. Are any of you like that too? Or were rather? Now I would rather be at the kids' table. But through working with children now, I get to be a kid. I get to play and explore my creative side and make friends in ways that I couldn't when I was younger. So that's, I suppose, more of a selfish reason that I became an early childhood professional. And at the time, I really couldn't imagine doing anything else. As I mentioned, my worlds were colliding. I was taking a yoga teacher training. I was working as an administrator at my mom's center. And the idea came, I need to translate yoga for children in their early years. And that idea wouldn't shut up. It was very loud. And it wouldn't go away until I did it. And so I just had to. It was my third reason. I could not do it. These reasons are like themes of a story. So the reasons that you've written down are your personal themes that provide a wide brush, an overall context for your story. So keep them on your paper, in the back of your head, because they will emerge later on. Now, this next question is hopefully an easy one. How do you best like to express yourself? What makes you light up? Is it language, through words, storytelling, writing? Is it through art, so visual art, dramatic art, music? Is it movement, dancing, play? Or is it something else? How do you like to express yourself? And you're just going to jot this down, all right? Knowing what lights you up and how you best like to express yourself, this allows you to see how your character contributes to your story. This is your personality. This is your character development. It is probably of no surprise that mine are words, speaking, talking, and movement through yoga and dance. Those are the two things that if I show up and I am able to do those two things, I'm a light. It lights me up. So what is that for you? How many of you like to sing in your classrooms with your children? We have reluctant singers raising their hands. Shoot that hand up. I like to sing. How many of you like to move and play and dance with your kids? Yeah. How many of you are really you are comfortable and confident at the creative table? So how do you live out this favorite way to express yourself in your work? And jot that down. Think about it a little bit. How do you get to shine your light in your classrooms? How many of you love making your bulletin board displays? This is a tough one, tough crowd, just one. All right. Bulletin boards are time consuming, but they're visual art. It is a form of expression. Okay, so really think about how you get to do what you love to do in your rooms. And then if you are having a little bit of trouble connecting the dots, how could you incorporate more of what you love to do? As an administrator, I'm not doing yoga with the children. So I needed to remove myself from the role of administrator and insert myself as role of children's yoga teacher so that I could do more of what lit me up. Does that make sense? So if you love to sing, sing more. If you love to dance, dance more. It's very simple, I know. But sometimes it's that aha invitation that's required to make it happen. All right? Whether it's through language, art, movement, any of the above, or something of your own, your story, it longs to be told. It is in you and wants to be out there. But how many of you are scared to tell it? Hesitant arms. Nobody raises their hand. So everybody is very confident and would come up here and put this mic on and say, this is my name, this is what I do, this is what I'm passionate about, and this is all of the reasons why I am important. Would you all do that? No, probably not. So we need to practice. That's why you're writing all of these things down, okay? All right, I'm getting off topic. We're going to go again. Okay, here is where we're going to map your major plot points of your story. This is like your resume, okay? It's the semi-boring part, but important enough to do it. So I'm going to ask you a set of specific questions, and you're just going to write your specific answers, okay? When did you know for sure that you wanted to be an early childhood professional? When did you know in your heart? Was it the moment that you decided to enroll in your education to be an early childhood educator? Were you 3 years old and had a teacher that you loved and you wanted to be just like them? Like, when did you know? Maybe you still don't know, and that's okay. You write that down. Be honest with yourself. Okay, so when did you know you wanted to do this work? What year, if you decided to engage in post-secondary education, what year did you start your program? And then what year did you finish? What year did you graduate, if you've gotten to that part yet? And then when did you get your first job? Where was it? And maybe you've changed roles within that job, or maybe you've changed centers. So just a quick jot of all of the places that you've worked and the role that you've played within that place. And this last question I'm going to ask, I know that there's a laundry list of answers that are likely going to come flooding. Have you engaged in any professional development workshops, and what were they? This is your CPL, right? Now, you probably have lots of certificates just sitting somewhere, right, in a pile? Yes. I don't want you to talk about all of the certificates. What's 1 or 2 workshops that you've been to that have changed the way you see yourself, that have really inspired you? Or you took the workshop and then that week implemented something from it. Like workshops you remember, because we've all been to boring workshops, right? Hopefully not this one. No laughs, tough crowd. So the professional development experiences that lit you up enough to remember them, I want you to make note of those. And now you have this timeline of your profession. When you knew you wanted to be what you are, when you started the formal process to become who you are, and then what you're doing now to further develop who you are. Okay? Now, these are points in your story that people are going to look to for credibility. They want to see the letters on the other side of your name. They want to know that you have experience. They want to see on paper that you are qualified by way of certification and registration to do what you do. Does that make sense? But credibility is not the same thing as integrity, because you could have all the letters on the other side of your name, but this could not be the work for you. How many of you know people who have the letters but should maybe be doing something else? Yeah. And then how many of you know people who have no letters but are the most amazing professionals? Right? Letters don't matter. They really don't. It's your heart that matters, and your heart is what I would rather you communicate. We get through this credibility part, but integrity is where we're headed, and it is what is more important. Because credibility might make you believable, but integrity is what makes you you. Integrity is what allows you to show your whole self. Your heart, your mind, your spirit. It's the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles that you bring with you to your role. And so these credibility points, now that we've gotten them out of the way, we can dive into your points of integrity. And integrity often comes from a very inspired place. We learn integrity from others. And so the next set of reflections that we're going to go through are, who inspired you to be who you are today? Who do you turn to now for guidance? And what experiences have shaped who you are? Now, these are big questions. So I don't want you to get into the story of why. I just want you to write chapter titles. And these chapter titles are going to be names. All right? So who inspired you to be who you are today? And this doesn't have to fit nicely within the scope of earlier childhood work. You are a whole human being, so who has inspired you? For me, a few people that are very important in my story are Miss Clarkson. She was my JK, grade 2, and grade 3 teacher. She knew that I was that kid that struggled with the other kids in the class socially, and so she took me under her wing. I remember a story she told me. One day I was very not interested in going out for recess. Do you have any of those kids who don't want to go outside? I was that kid, like would shut down if I had to go outside. And so she put me in her coat, and we walked out together, and I spent recess in Miss Clarkson's coat. And that's something that, I don't really remember being in her coat, but I remember her telling me about it. And I'm like, wow, she cared about me. She cared that I felt safe. And so I know I just went into the story, but the chapter title is Miss Clarkson, okay? Somebody else who inspires me, Miss Frizzle. We all know her. Magic School Bus. She inspires me to be who I am today. Mr. Rogers is another individual who's incredibly important to my story. My mom, who are those people to you? And just write them down, all right? And then who do you turn to now for guidance? So you've got something going on in work or in life. You need to either vent or get help or something along those lines. Who do you go to? Who's on your speed dial? They are important to have chapter titles in your story. For me, like I mentioned, I go to my mom. I go to my cousin Jessica. She is an RECE as well. And I'm working on turning to my intuition. That part is hard, but that deserves a chapter title. Okay, so who do you turn to now for guidance? And then the last one, what life events have shaped you into who you are? I think I mentioned earlier that I had experienced a really difficult time with my mental health, with my nervous breakdown and psychotic break. I call that chapter the big kaboom. That changed the trajectory of my life. I'm not going into detail right now about how it changed the trajectory of my life. I'm just making it a chapter title, okay? Another important piece for me in my story, I grew up dancing. I went competitive. I danced all throughout university. And growing up as a dancer, I was told and made to believe that my time as a dancer would eventually expire. I would become old, my body would become decrepit, and dancing would no longer be available to me. Once again, I know I'm telling you my backstory. You don't have to get into yours, but I'm showing you how to get to your chapter titles, okay? Now, it was no coincidence that when I stopped dancing was when my mental health took its deepest decline and fastest decline. I had had movement as medicine for my entire life to deal with problems that I was not aware that I had. And then I stopped moving, and I stopped effectively taking that self-medicine, and so I got sick. And so that title that changed, once again, the trajectory of my life. So I stopped dancing is the chapter title. This is the type of question that you might be uncovering for the rest of your life. I know I will be. But it's important to be asking yourself, why am I doing this? Why is this informing my choices? And what is making this important to me right now? All right? And the pandemic. How many of your lives have been changed by the pandemic? I see nods and hands. We must be tired or hungry. How many of you are hungry? I sense lots of hunger in the room. I promise. I know I'm the bridge between your lunch, but we will get there. I promise. The pandemic completely changed the trajectory of my life, and therefore it deserves a chapter. So just start jotting down what those are. Okay? And then for this next exercise, I just want to borrow this work from Rebecca Campbell. She's the author of many books, one of which is Rise, Sister, Rise. Are any of you familiar with her? She's seed planted. If you feel called, look into her and her work. And the exercise is your message is the thing you most needed to hear. So we have all of these chapter titles, right, with people and events. Those people were either a light in your life, and they had a message, or they have a message that you carry with you. And sometimes those people that have shaped you into who you are or inspired you, they inspired you because of their lack of light. My mom had a teacher in grade 1 who she was terrified of. And my mom became the educator that she is today because she did not want any child to have an educator like that teacher. Does that make sense? So this particular exercise is taking a look at those chapters and then asking yourself, what did I need to hear from that person? Or what did I hear from that person? So from Miss Clarkson, what I heard was, I matter, and I am worthy of attention, and my feelings are valid. From Miss Frizzle, what is her catchphrase? Call it out to me. Let's get messy. That's what I needed to hear and continue to need to hear from Miss Frizzle. That's the message. From Mr. Rogers, I like you just the way you are. They're just phrases. As they come to you, jot them down. Okay? They might come to you later. Jot them down later. And then for those people who might have inspired you not because they were a light, but because they needed light themselves, for me, I've been in a lot of classrooms, and I always get sad for the teachers who need their kids to be perfect, who need their kids to listen, who need their kids to do exactly what I'm doing, or else it's like they've failed. If you are that teacher, or you know that teacher, you know how hard that weight is to carry. Those teachers inspire me to take a deep breath and smile, because it's not that serious. The work we do is important, but it's not that serious. The first answer to what is happening in this picture was fun, right? So that's a message that I need to hear. You are not responsible for the perfection of your children. You just take a deep breath and smile and be there with them. And that's what I get from those relationships. Okay? Now, for who you turn to for guidance, same question. What are the things that they say or the things that they make you feel that make you go to them? For my mom and Jessica, I always go to them with my new ideas. If I write a silly little song to sing in my next class, I send them the voice notes. And what I hear from them always is, you have good ideas. And that's what I need to hear. That's part of that message. My intuition, which I am learning to listen to, there's the message that I always need to hear from that part of me is, trust me. So all of these phrases, what I need to hear is what I'm sharing with you now. So they come out naturally in my messaging. And the same is true for you. Now that last part, what life events have shaped you into who you are, I hope my computer is gonna last. We're gonna find out. What life events have shaped you into who you are, what did you need to hear when those things were happening, or what did you hear? For me, in the context of my mental health challenges, what I needed to hear from the psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and friends and family was, you are not broken. What I needed to hear when I stopped dancing was keep dancing. And I actually didn't know that I needed to hear that until I took a dance class like a year after I had stopped. And I went out for dinner with a friend afterwards, and we had told the server that we had just came back from a dance class, we feel so great. And the server wrote, "Keep dancing," with a heart on my receipt. And I still have that receipt. I don't remember that server's name. I do remember her face. But that changed my life. Anytime I stop dancing, I remember the receipt and I keep dancing. Does that make sense? So I needed to hear that, and some magical, mystical unicorn of a human gave it to me at the right time. You have those moments too, and if you haven't had it yet, it's gonna come now that you're aware. So take note of those. And then this pandemic, I mean it when I say my life came to a halt, a devastating halt, much like everybody else's. My identity is very tied up in my profession, going into schools and childcare centers, being with groups of people like you, and none of this was allowed for the longest time, and I had no idea if it would ever be allowed again. So what I needed to hear was something along the lines of, "This too shall pass, and it will get better." And even, I did have a lot of people tell me it will get better. It was very hard to believe. This is my first in-person workshop since 2020. Thanks. I hear a subtle clap in the background. And I, at one point, did not believe that this was possible. But now, because I had heard it will get better, and I have this experience, it is like calcifying in my cells, in my being, that it does get better. So in times where I don't believe it will get better, I can turn to this as an experience of positivity and be like, it does. So this all contributes to me. Your personal narratives contribute to you. Obviously. Okay, so have you jotted those messages down? I see nods. I'll take that as a yes, and if not, come back to them when you can. Now, why does sharing your message matter? I'm just gonna check my timing here. Oh, perfect timing. I will tell you why I think sharing your message matters, but I wanna hear from you. Why does sharing your story and your message matter? Yes. Yeah, because you matter. You do. So much. So much. So if you matter, your story matters. And that's a truth for everybody. Thank you for that. Why else? Yes. It gives hope. How many of us need hope? Oh, so much of it. Sharing stories gives hope, and receiving stories gives hope. Thank you for sharing that. Why else does sharing your story matter? Yes. It could help somebody else. Absolutely. Yes. You have no idea. That server did not know the impact she made in my life. And all of your lives now. Years later. So speak up. It matters. Yes. It removes barriers, blocks. Yes. Because it's like a weight that's lifted. Beautiful. Why else? Why does sharing your story matter? I see a hand. Yes. Yeah, it tells you who you are. And that self-awareness is everything. It's everything. Because then you can stand confidently in front of a group of people and be like, this is me, take it or leave it, but I am who I am. I'm gonna confidently stand here and do my important work. Anybody else have something on the tip of their tongue or caught in their throat that they need to express? Why does sharing your story matter? Yes. Motivation, is that what you said? Yeah, it's motivating. It's motivating. How many of you, I think I asked this earlier, like none of you would come up here and be like, these are all the reasons why I'm awesome. right? Not right now anyways. But how many of you have ever been with a friend and they point out to you all of the ways in which you are awesome? And you're like warm and fuzzy. It feels good. And you're like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I got myself out of the deepest, darkest depression. Oh yeah, I've done it multiple times. Oh yeah, I've started this business. Oh yeah, I graduated from this program. Oh yeah, I went through that really difficult time. Oh yeah, I threw the best party ever. Like times of joy, times of sorrow. You did that. And when you're reminded of it, it's very motivating. It's like, if I did that, what else can I do? I really needed to hear that, so thank you for sharing. Anybody else? All right. I believe that sharing your story matters because when you're very intentional about who you are and what you do and how you share it, that intention, it strengthens. The stronger your intention, the better your outcomes. All right? I believe that sharing your message matters because as you do it, you become more integrous. More of your heart shows up. The more captivating you are to people, the more reason people have to want to be around you and know your worth and your value. And I believe that sharing your message, when you do so, your impact becomes limitless. That server had no idea the impact she made on my life, and now yours. Story sharing your message, has infinite potential to change lives, to help people. And so, this is, as we come towards the end of our session, the opportunity for you to write your story. This is an impact statement. This is like a nice, tidy way to take everything that you just reflected on and put it into a paragraph. So you'll start, you can take a picture of this so that you have it and you have this template because it's something you can revisit too. Your story's going to change. Your character is going to develop. But today, who are you? My name is fill in the blank. I became an early childhood professional in, and this is somewhat subjective. You know, my first role that I played in the classroom as a professional was as a professional laminate cutter, cutting out bulletin board shapes at like 4 years old, whenever I was able to manipulate scissors. So I could say that's when I became an early childhood professional. I could say 2015 when I did my children's yoga teacher training. I could say when I was an administrator. When did you, in your heart, become an early childhood professional? Okay? I have explored this passion through, and then you're going to pull from how you most like to express yourself, what lights you up. And then very intentionally follow that statement with, and intend on doing so as long as I am able and willing. This is an affirmation. Because just because you're able to do something doesn't mean you have to do it. That willingness needs to be there. And if you are no longer willing, then you need to turn the page, start a new chapter, and find a way to light yourself up again. Okay? My message that I hope to share with the children in my care and the people in my life is, and this is where you're going to insert those things that you needed to hear. And this is ever changing, but what is it today? And this last sentence is very, very important. I want you to write it word for word. Thank you for hearing me. People might listen, but they don't always hear. In order to be a confident professional, you need to command a level of respect that makes people hear you. Because they can listen to you talk about the fact that that's not just a bag of bubbles and buttons, but are they hearing what you're saying about the importance of that activity? Does that make sense? So when you say, thank you for hearing me, if they did not hear you, they're like, oh, I should have been listening. Or you've just made this connection, this solid foundational connection, and your stories amplify. This is where, when you open that binder of your CPL, make this your first page. Your impact statement is where your CPL starts. Everything after that, all your certificates, the certificates are the points of credibility. Your integrity is that reflective practice around them. Why did this session matter? And if it didn't, don't feel like you have to write a narrative about it. It doesn't deserve a long chapter. It deserves the certificate. The sessions that mean something to you, do some reflective work on that. I took this and made this from this experience. If you can just talk about what you are already doing, the CPL isn't extra work. The CPL is your chance to shine and communicate why you matter. Not because you have to, but because you're proud. So, know that this is an ever-changing statement. It's something that you can modify as time goes on. And I really hope that you will take this and use it. If you're ever asked to provide a bio, or if you have bios on the front doors of your classrooms, make it your impact statement. Use this in conversations with parents, with people who you want to hear you. And I can't guarantee anything, but I can almost, without any doubt, guess that eyes will open and ears will actually listen. From my aura to yours, thank you so very, very much for hearing me today, for engaging in this session. And I am here for hugs or questions if anybody has any.